Did you know that the ancient Olympic Games were held in Olympia, Greece, as a festival to celebrate pagan god Zeus? The games were held between 776 before Christ and 393 Anno Domini. The games were banned because they were considered a pagan celebration in a converted Roman Empire. And 1500 years later, Greeks won the most medals in the newly re-established Olympic Games. Those medals were made just out of silver, there were no gold medals. Hello, my name is Bogdan Shinkaryuk. I'm a graduate student at FAU, and I'm doing my master's of accounting and taking this class to get a concentration in accounting information systems. My co-presenters and teammates Sayani Khan and Monica Ramotowska and I will inform you what we've learned from the dataset with Olympic Games data between 1896 and 2016 through visualization and analysis. In this presentation, you'll learn general information about the games in the introduction. Then Sayani will delve into athletic events and sport data. After that, I will catch up with visualization for gender data, and Monica will wrap up the presentation with country data and conclusion. Nowadays, the event is a place where nations compete and show who is better at sports and let this team out. Whether you see it as an event testing the limits of human strength and endurance or as a gathering of the best that each country has to offer, the Olympics are the time where human perseverance and camaraderie are showcased to the world. Our story delves into the history of the modern Olympic Games from its beginning in Athens, Greece in 1896 all the way to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 2016. It includes the data for medals won in gold, silver, bronze, and participation as per country, athlete, discipline, gender, and sport. We will be making comparisons between certain data points in order to paint a portrait of how games were changed in the past 200 years and which elements are correlated to the greatest success in Olympic Games. Now Sayani will present to you her findings about sports and events.
Hello everyone, my name is Shiny and today I'll be taking ahead this presentation by stating some of the key performance indicators of this Olympic sports which happened during this year 1896 to 2016 through this Tableau visual dashboard. So this dashboard tells us helps us in doing a visual analysis of by giving us the answers to the following queries like who were the top athletes during this period, which all countries actually participated in this Olympic Games with the number of qualifying sports, what was the BMI of these athletes with respect to their age, and how many medals they achieve medals were achieved by per sports that made the sports the highest or the top ranks, and which all sports qualified for the summer and the winter Olympics. Starting with the first this worksheet, but before going into details, I would like to give a brief idea about the Olympic sports, which was represented by the international governing body, that is International Federation. The IOC, or the International Olympic Committee, actually establishes the hierarchy of sports, discipline, and the events. And these IOCs also recognizes the NOC, or the National Olympic Committee, which is of 206 as of now. And these NOCs are again responsible for promoting and developing these Olympic movement in their respective countries. Each Olympic sport is divided into multiple disciplines, and the disciplines are subdivided into events for which the Olympic medals are awarded. For this workbook, however, the disciplines are all mentioned under the label sport as referenced from the data worksheet spreadsheet that we are using. This first worksheet tells us how many were there, the athletes who ranked the highest because of the medals they achieve in their respective sports category. We see that if we want to find out who are the top 10 athletes, we can find that from this parameter that we have set, and it's Michael Fred-Phelps with 23 gold medals and overall 28. Larissa stands the second with in 18 medals in gymnastics, then Takashi with gymnastics, and so on and so forth. The second worksheet tells us which all these countries or the NOC countries that represented with how many of the qualifying sports. So if we look year by year, we see that these all countries actually participated, and it all started with the United States and very few countries who actually participated with some of the qualifying sports, and that we can see over here. And it's the number has increased in 2016 when it was held in Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. It is also seen that United States, for all this 120 years, it has the highest number of qualifying sports with 51. Then is Germany, and then Russia, and so on. When we come to this third worksheet, we find out that what is the body mass index with respect to the age of these athletes. It's a little bit wrong to say about this BMI, because it's not the accurate for these athletes, because their muscle mass actually boosts them in this obese range, and that's why we see a higher segregation or a higher amount of athletes in this range. The second is the overweight, and then is the normal weight, and then is the underweight. So if we quickly go into this worksheet, we see that we have created a weight status calculated field, and I want to show you this to understand what is actually the standard we have selected, that is less 18.5 as reference from the NOC, from the IOC, from the CDC government, and which states that the normal 20-year adult should have the BMI range between this. Otherwise, they are called less than 18.5 is underweight. If it is less than 24.9 is normal. If it is between 25 to 29, it's again overweight, and then obese. So it is quite desired for these weightlifters or this wrestlers to fall into this category, because their muscle mass actually is boosting them to this in this obese range, and these outliers actually tells us that which of these athletes are having the BMIs out of their range. For example, this is quite low. For sailing, we all can desire that it can be low, because this sports only desire that their weight should be low. Now getting back to the dashboard, we see that how many sports actually rank the highest because of their medals they achieved in this following years. For example, we see it all began with athletics to be the highest, and then we have seen that rowing, swimming, gymnastics, shooting, they all have ranked highest among the Summer Olympics, and among the winter, it's always the ice hockey. So we have two graphs to show one of the cumulative total and one as per the different medal category, as which all sports that rank the highest. Now getting back to this last worksheet, we find that till 1992, there was actually no segregation between the Winter and the Summer Olympics. However, from 1994, this it all started with Winter Games occurred in a 4-year cycle. Then it was Summer in 1996, and then Winter in 1998, and that continued, so on and so forth. So if we go into this for a better view, we see that it all started in 1896 with these following games, and then it all appeared that from 1994 this segregation actually took place. There were actually 9 sports that started initially in Athens, Greece, when Olympic Games first started, and now the number has increased to 34. There is 18 sports which has been discontinued so far, and 11 of them have actually qualified only once in their entire tenure. So they just appeared for once a year and then they disappeared. We can find that from this set that I have prepared, that these were the few sports that appeared just once and then they were removed or discontinued. That might be the reason of the discontinuation, because they might have not a proper government recognizing them, or they might not have the appropriate governing body, or they might not have the importance or lost lack of interest. So baseball and softball was the last of the games that were discontinued in 2008, and that's what we can find out from this, like which all the sports actually are in this Summer Olympics from this all, and from here we can find out like which are actually discontinued. So that's all from my side. I thoroughly enjoyed preparing this dashboard and hope you also enjoyed having a visual having a visualization of this dashboard and the worksheets. So thank you from my side, and rest of the presentation would be continued by my teammates.
I'm back, guys, and I will tell you the story about the discovered patterns related to the gender in Olympic Games from my perspective. So in the first visualization on the left, we can see that the trend for participation for both genders continues up over time. What could be the reason for such trend? In my opinion, as the level of life in societies increase over time, over the years, with improvements in technology, people had more time to spend on leisure, including participating in sports and watching them. Developments in radio and television technologies also helped to popularize sports. Please comment in the discussion to our submission your opinions on what could be the reasons for increase in Olympic Games participation. Another insight that comes from this visualization is that women's participation compared to pre-war games increased by 40% and then by 300% compared to pre-war games, from 549 to 1600. This could be attributed to the fact that during the war, many countries encouraged women to join and effectively pull them into parts of workforce that required hard labor and dangerous conditions. Putting women in those positions allowed countries to substitute men who went to fight, while allowing countries to maintain the production output of civil and war goods so needed for victory. This visualization, the question is, what was the process of inclusion of women teams throughout the globe? So countries in blue represented just by male athletes, and countries in red also have women athletes represented. Please watch the visualization while I will explain some of the background. So the first women participated in 1900 games. Swiss Helene de Portalea was the first woman to compete and win the title in Olympics. However, that was the team competition. In singles, the first one was Charlotte Cooper from Britain, who won a tennis title. And despite the inclusion, as you see on the map, more and more countries becoming red, in 1992, 35 countries had teams represented by male team only. And up until 2012, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain in the Middle East did not have a women's team. That's how those countries are conservative. Another interesting insight is that some of the countries in turmoil or in the periods of war didn't have any women's teams, if any, for the Olympics. A recent example is Iraq. As you can see on the map, it's blue. Which sports do you think are the most popular in Olympics? The most popular sports in Olympics are athletics, gymnastics, and swimming. However, and they're mostly represented by females, 2/3 on average. However, an interesting fact is that there are sports that are dominated by women, which are synchronized swimming, rhythmic gymnastics, and softball. The first two sports require incredible agility, and men on average are less agile and flexible than women, whereas softball is a modified baseball, if you don't know. They play with bigger balls and have smaller distances. However, men have also sports that they dominate only, and those are Nordic combined, baseball, and also ski jumping. Those sports are, while baseball is not dangerous, Nordic combined and ski jumping are considered to be dangerous for women, because while landing, women were considered more likely to get an injury. Now Monica will discuss the patterns she found by country.
1896 to 1956. In this visualization, we see that the US leads the way with 497 medals. Other European countries are over 100 medals behind the US. Having moved the slider, we see the US's color lighten. Russia and Germany beat out the US in bronze medals during this time. When looking at the silver medals, the US far exceeds any other country in silver medals for this time period. We also notice that not many African or Asian countries are participating in the Olympics. As you can see, when we move the time period forward, the US, Russia, and Germany are the leaders in silver medals, with Australia, China, and Canada trailing far behind them. Now for the gold. No country compares to the US during this time period, which has 910 gold medals. In the 1956 to 2016 time period, we have some clear high performers. The US is still a frontrunner, but not by as high margins. Russia is only approximately 200 medals behind the US. Germany is a bit further behind with only 1,100 medals. This sheet is intended to show the locations of each Olympic city in a map view. As the animation plays, we will see the cities that have hosted the Olympic Games from 1896 to 2016. The process to become a host for the Olympic Games is long and arduous, consisting of a multi-review process. One key requirement is that cities have a well-developed city integration plan that details the links among all Games-related operating plans and the host city's overall plan. Due to the number of visitors that the Games attract, this is very important. From the map, we know that the Olympics are hosted in either big capital cities that are well equipped to handle the amount of people who come to the event, and these cities are sometimes revisited, most likely due to this attractive factor. The expense of the Olympics is great. In addition to new projects and construction, the cities must undertake a bid fee of $150,000. For this reason, only well-developed cities are typically in the running. On the map, we see that there are 3 clusters, primarily in Europe, North America, and Northeast Asia. We also know that the geography and climate of the Olympics is very important, especially during the Winter Olympics where snow is needed for sports. We see one cluster in the Alps of cities that have hosted the Winter Olympics, most likely because it's optimal climate and topography for snow-related sports. The final worksheet was designed to show the frequency at which a city hosts the Olympics. At first, we primarily see many European cities cropping up. Most notably, we see that Athens hosted twice within a 20-year period. Athens and London have both hosted the Olympics 3 times, which is more than any other city. As the animation goes on, we see that new cities in different areas start popping up. The US has hosted the Olympics 8 times, more than any other country. Additionally, here we have a parameter set for the year. It's currently set to 1945, when World War II ended. Interestingly, we see that Germany was the last country to host the Olympics prior to this time period. In conclusion, we provided some very interesting information on the modern Olympic Games. We learned about the physical characteristics of Olympic athletes and the most successful athletes. We touched on the increasing representation of women in the various sports and which countries are the most successful at the Games. Finally, we got a glimpse of the criteria of a host city and seen some of the diversity in host cities in the recent era. We hope you enjoyed our story of the history of the Games and its evolution. Thank you for watching.